Great. So I will make a start now. So thanks everybody. We just might be a few people trying to get in, but we'll hopefully they'll be able to join us in a moment. So I'm Fergus Lyon, a professor at Middlesex University, and been working on the project looking at fostering sustainable practices, rethinking fashion design entrepreneurship. And we're really glad today to welcome colleagues who have been doing the research with me on this project, and also Riz Smith from and Debbie Luffman from Finisterre, who will be also here to answer some questions and talk about some of the work that they've been doing as well. So just to introduce my colleagues, we have Professor Sandy Black you'll be hearing from, Professor Claudia Eckert, and Dr. Andrea Werner as well. And Riz, would you like to just introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, yeah, my name's Riz Smith, and we have a men's swim short and surf short company that focuses on ocean conservation and circular design models. So yeah, we've been going for just over 10 years, and yeah, and really working slowly but surely behind the scenes on trying to work towards a more positive future.
Debbie, you'd like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, hi, I'm Debbie. I'm the product director at Finisterre. Finisterre's an outdoor clothing brand. We make sustainable clothing for men and women that share our passion for the ocean. We're based down in Cornwall.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Just a couple of housekeeping things, just to let everyone know, we'll be recording this webinar. Throughout the webinar, we'd love you to pose your questions and into the Q&A box. It's best you put that straight into the Q&A box. The chat function is also available for people to have conversations, but we'd rather the Q&A can go into the questions can go in the Q&A box. Then we will be either answering those as we go through, or particularly at the end, we'll have a time for a good discussion and to bring in the ideas from Riz and Debbie as well. So please do fire away your questions all through as you hear the presentations as well. Can we have the next slide, please? So this team who've been working on this project, it's been going the last 2.5 years, and it's led by the Centre for Sustainable Fashion and Sandy Black, who will be talking in a moment. And they're based at the University of the Arts London, part of the London College of Fashion. The other academic partners alongside them are the Open University with Claudia, who will be talking next, and also Middlesex University, where I am. And this is also part, at Middlesex, we're also part of another cross-university partnership called the Centre for Understanding Sustainable Prosperity. And this is a programme that is looking at very similar issues about how do we live well within our limits, and how do we challenge some of these ideas of living sustainably while not trying to maximize profit at all points, but going for wider objectives as well. So the seminar today ties very much into that wider program. Next slide, please. So the project is there to investigate both the creative and the business practices and the sustainable fashion. And I think that's a theme that will be running through all of the talks we have today. How do you balance the creativity, the business, and sustainability all together? And that's where we're really glad that with Riz and Debbie here, they can give examples of how it can be done, but also how hard it is and the challenges, and how we are all learning about how we can go along this journey. We're going to look particularly at the micro and small enterprises. There's a lot of attention to larger businesses, but we're finding that some of the most innovative and interesting angles are coming from some of the small and micro enterprises, and some of those are growing as well. So we'll hear. That's why we'll be interesting to hear through the seminar today of those two, both for the smaller and for the larger. So over the 2.5 years of the project, we've worked with over 40 fashion micro and small enterprises, with examining both the role of the designer as a driver for sustainable prosperity, really looking at what is their role of these businesses. The word entrepreneur is debated as well, and often those involved who are there, some of them like the term, but many don't see themselves as entrepreneurs. They have other ways of expressing what they do. But we see that as they're people who are there making decisions, doing having the element of creativity, taking the risks in running a business as well. So that's why we've used that term. We're looking particularly, as I mentioned, at the environmental, economic, social and cultural value, and how all of those elements are brought together in these businesses. And we've found a whole wide range of different business models and design and working practices, and we'll talk about that throughout today as well. We're also looking at the small trusted networks, the collaborators, the co-creators that all link this all together. So recognizing that it's not based on individuals, it's not based on individual companies, but it's all the whole wider ecosystem, you could say, in which they are operating that makes this possible. And coming out of the work we're doing here is a whole range. It's academic research, but also the development of a guidebook that we'll be talking a bit more about tomorrow. So if you've had the links for the seminar tomorrow as well, we hope you'll join us, because where we'll be talking particularly there around how can these organizations be supported. What's the role of business support? How can we grow and scale up some of these activities that we'll be talking about today? We're also doing a policy briefing note, and we recognise that there's a key role for policy in this as well, in that we need to have good political support. We need to have the role of government in providing forms of business support and providing the right educational environment, and also creating that level playing field that brings the industry up to the standards that many of the enterprises we're looking at today are operating at. So it's a key role to show what is possible. Go to the next slide. So as well as the academics involved, there's a whole range of other partners contributing to these. Of course, the most important have been the core businesses that have been involved. We started with sort of 5 core partners from the beginning of the project, but others have been so involved all the way through, and we're really grateful for all of the inputs that they've had, and they've really changed the way we've been thinking about this. And we've been it's been a fascinating journey for us as well to really understand that. There are a whole range of other partner organisations that we're also working with. So that our FSP, the Fostering Sustainable Practices project, we've collaborated with the London College of Fashion, the incubator of the Centre for Fashion Enterprises, and various other industry partners. In business, the British Fashion Council, the African Fashion Week, London, and Common Objective as well, are all sort of shaping and had a big influence what we're doing. We're hoping to feed our work into their activities as well. And then also with the manufacturing organisations, Fashion Textile Association and the Textile Centre of Excellence. And also the online fashion platform, not just a label. So these are some of them who we've been working with, and we're really keen to engage with a wide range of others. So if there are others joining us today and feel that this work is important for you, do get in touch with us, because we're always keen to create those links. Right, next slide. Great. So so the project research themes.
That's the beginning of
this is Sandy's going to be talking about from this one. So I'll introduce you here now to Professor Sandy Black from the Centre for Sustainable Fashion, University of the Arts, London. Thank you, Sandy.
Thank you, Fergus, and I'm delighted to be here again, and the second of this series of events celebrating the end of this 2.5-year project. And over that time, the project's worked closely with a wide range of small and micro fashion businesses. We call them MSEs, but then fashion and fashion-related businesses. And they're purpose-led, sustainably motivated, and offer alternative approaches and visions for success. They aim to transform fashion's current paradigm of overproduction and overconsumption, and contribute to environmental and social justice, as well as creating great products that people will cherish for a long time and staying in business. So it's a lot of juggling to do to try and meet all those targets. And you can see here, and Fergus already went through the main themes of our research at the top of the slide here. And today we're focusing very much on the business models and the business networks. And we were talking on Monday about the design of vision, values, capabilities. And so several themes have emerged from our analysis. We've done, well over 100 interviews and so on. And I'm just going to really talk briefly about some of these themes, such as the using fashion as a tool for social change, and businesses' models for transformation of existing practices in fashion, because that's really what has to change. And also the use of digital technology as an enabler for collaboration and sustainability. Can I have the next slide, please? Businesses also have a strong engagement with their customers and their consumer base, and that came into fore in the pandemic. So we have actually 27 businesses that we've worked very closely with over a long period of time, as well as the original, including the original 5. And those cover women's wear, menswear, genderless clothing, lingerie, children's wear, accessories, footwear, and also service-based businesses, such as those who are providing pattern cutting and production services. And then others providing apps for sharing of clothes, that sort of thing, wardrobe management. And some are doing consultancy where they've been in the industry, but they're now trying to go in and work with businesses and do special projects. So it's a broad range. There are many different ways that fashion design entrepreneurs are developing sustainable businesses across all their operations, from their design to the production to packaging to energy, including transport and so on. So they're trying to take into account very many different things, all of their activities. Oh, next slide, please. Next, thank you. So such as Birdsong and Bethany Williams, Birdsong was earlier in the week, are using fashion very specifically as a tool for social change, and they're working with local, often disadvantaged communities and groups via charities that they collaborate with to provide meaningful work and support communities, very often women's communities and in their local areas. And this work has a really strong impact in those communities and for those people. Next slide, please. So Elvis and Cressy are an example of a social enterprise set up very much to transform waste materials into luxury accessories and products, but to donate 50% of the profits to charitable causes. And because it's waste material and nothing new is used, that means that the more that is sold, the more is rescued from waste, and the more can be donated. And Elvis and Cressy make all products in-house, and like many others, they've moved away from traditional model of selling wholesale to retail stockists, and are doing much more direct-to-consumer selling, making limited editions and small batch production, often pre-ordered, such as other businesses such as Paint a Jacket, Birdsong, Little Black Pants, who were with us on Monday as well, are also doing very much a pre-order model. Next slide, please. Many businesses are now aiming to use non-virgin materials or repurpose fabrics. Rayburn, who's in the middle here, is well known for using ex-military fabrics and clothing in its Remade line. Bethany Williams, Phoebe English, many others, including also Readorn, a jewellery business, repairs and upcycle used jewellery, making those into new pieces. So this is a growing activity across the sector. Transformational business models look to disrupt the status quo with new ways of doing fashion, new philosophy and new mindsets. We're taking innovation beyond the creation of products. And many of these involve using digital technologies, such as unmade software systems that aims to transform industrial production to a demand-driven model from design, make, sell to design, sell, make, and enabling small batches and customized production at near mass market prices. And that would be a revolution for the industry. New platforms and apps are being developed for clothes sharing and swapping services such as New and Save Your Wardrobe to revalue clothes and to maximize their use and manage existing wardrobes. Away to Mars, seen on the left here, has developed a new model of co-creation for fashion using an online platform and opened up the design and development process as an opportunity to co-create with a community. And they reward those contributing to any designs produced through a financial payback. And Sabina, seen here, combines a craft approach and responsible design ethos with storytelling and creating connections between people. And she experiments with interactive fashion experiences through special projects that use virtual reality and augmented reality to create experiences that mean that fashion can be experienced without making and purchasing new products. So sustainability is not just about how products are made, but how the business is run and how it engages with customers and community. The BCorp certification is a recognized measure of both environmental and social good business practices. And our guests today are both BCorp certified and both coincidentally related to the oceans. Next slide, please. Next slide, thanks. So as Riz has explained with his business, very much aiming to be circular as much as possible and based in the oceans and using recycled ocean plastics and also starting to take back and resell and recycle products. Next slide, please. And Finisterre, as Debbie has said, making outdoor products and has had sustainability built in really as a standard process, trying to connect very much with the environment and have strong connections with communities through the shops around and making the most ethical and environmentally sustainable products that they can. So I'll hand back to Fergus now. Thank you.
Can we have the next slide, please?
Next slide. So I'd like to introduce Andrea Werner, who will talk more about the hybrid business models.
Yeah, this is really just more or less a kind of summary of what Sandy has been setting out, that what we find here in the different business models is businesses that really go beyond just wanting to make money, but that really want to make a difference. And that means they seek to combine different objectives. And what we sort of the main objectives we see are social objectives, maybe in relation to good work, environmental objectives in relation to nature and reducing environmental impact. The creative side is of course very important for fashion designers. And then we have the business financial side. And it is a really interesting area for us, for our research, to see how are these brought together, what are the different ways in which these objectives are brought together, but what might also be the tensions between those, and but maybe also the opportunities of bringing them together and maybe thinking about business in a new way. And Sandy mentioned that already. What people do, they can make a difference with just a normal business, just incorporated as a sole trader or a limited company, but often or increasingly, these companies are trying to nail their colors to the mast through BCorp accreditation, for example, or even becoming a social enterprise. And being a social enterprise is quite a big commitment, because you basically make an overriding commitment to your social or environmental mission. And then that also means that your profit needs to actually be going back into promoting the mission of your business. Can we have the next slide, please? Another area that we are particularly interested in from a business school perspective, from a management science perspective, is this area of growth and impact. Now, obviously, mainstream business theory says people start their businesses and they seek to grow it to make a lot of money. And this is sort of an economic function of business, that you start a business, make it big, and then sell it off for profit. Now, our businesses, they challenge that model. And a lot of them, or a number of them, want to grow, but they don't want to grow just for growth's sake. They want to grow to actually have a bigger impact with their business. Others, again, they like to stay small, and they say we're very happy to be a niche player, to be a small player, but we would like to have more impact through sharing ideas, collaborating, and encouraging replication. And as businesses think about the growth and the plans for their growth, there are also tensions that they need to think through, the tension between maximizing impact and being commercially viable. The tension, this is something that came up over and over again in our research, the tension between growth and keeping control, and related to that, the tension between relying on their own surplus or actually getting external finance in, and to what extent does this actually mean to give up control over all aspects of the business. Next slide, please. I just thought I illustrate with a few examples from our data, different kind of growth plans or growth trajectories that companies have. So we have here in the first quote, someone who wants to grow organically, a slow growth, but being really part of a growing movement and making sustainability more mainstream, and with the brand helping that movement along. And the second one, a very strong, even a feeling there is an obligation, we need to grow, because if we grow, we can actually solve more of the environmental problems that we have encountered. Next slide, please. And for contrast, I really like these two. The first one, again, there was an initial plan for the person who started the business to actually say, I want to grow very big, and I want to basically challenge the mainstream players through me growing very large. But now the business owner actually says, why don't I franchise? Why don't I stay small? Treat this as my small business, my small project, but I'm happy to actually give this away as a franchise to other cities, and actually encourage other people to grow a community around my business idea in a more local setting. And the next one is also an interesting one, and that is Ria Dawn. And again, Ria Dawn is run by one person, by one woman, and she says she doesn't want to grow, but she wanted to increase her impact. And what she said is, I want to get together with other jewelers, and we're now forming a collective, and we can offer the upcycling service that I set up as part of a platform, and so increase our impact. So these are sort of examples of alternative forms of having an impact with a small business. I think I'm gonna pass on to Claudia now.
Great, so thank you, Jess. So Claudia Eckhardt from Open University, thank you. And if anyone's got any questions as we go along, please write them into the Q&A. The Q&A is only coming to the panelists. You won't see it, won't be going to all of the people who are attending, but then I'll take the questions and share them out and combine some as well. So please do keep them coming.
Thank you very much. I'm Claudia Eckhardt. I'm a professor of design at the Open University. We looked at the networks that the small fashion businesses were part of, and we very much found, like Andrea, that the fashion businesses didn't necessarily wanted to grow, but they certainly didn't work alone, but they were embedded in multiple networks. And we found that all of the businesses had some elements of these networks that we show here. So a very important part of their networks were their customers and their clients. A lot of the small businesses work directly with their customers, get feedback from the customer, get inspiration from the customers, sell directly to the customers. Some of them also, of course, sold through indirect sales through retailers, but we had a lot of really very fruitful interactions, and the designers really valued the input that they got from their customers. But of course, as businesses, we found that they also had a lot of formal business arrangements, and that was something that took up a lot of the energy of a lot of the designers that we studied. So they have their own staff, often they've got employees or they have got freelancers working with them. And of course, they felt very strongly about needing to be decent employers and being reliable employers of freelancers. A lot of their effort also went into finding suitable suppliers and other immediate manufacturers, fabric suppliers, and they also were very much part of the support network. A lot of the designers commented how their suppliers helped them finding other businesses, encouraged them, gave them new ideas, gave them feedback, and they played a very, very important role in a lot of the businesses. Then they had collaborations, as Sandy has talked about, with Sabina, partly with other designers or with other types of businesses. And some of them also had financial backers, so they had to deal with banks or business accelerators or grants, and again spent a lot of effort finding money to support them. And they also employed a whole lot of business services like accountants or web designers. There's also a lot of formal networks for businesses, and we're going to talk a lot about this tomorrow, so I'm not going to go into a lot of details. That there are support organizations tailored at fashion businesses, and then there's a lot of general business support that people can plug in. But what we also found, that there was a really important role of informal networks that the designers had formed amongst themselves. This were sometimes people they shared workspaces with, or people who worked in the neighborhood, sometimes just people they bumped into that they worked with, came up with common ideas, but also networks that have formed over many years, that they were sometimes past colleagues or employees. A huge importance of old college friends, and the London College of Fashion has done a fantastic job at really keeping alumni networks going and supporting their alumni. And that was something that the designers valued very strongly, and other kind of professional friends. And we found that particularly in the COVID crisis, it was these informal networks that really kicked in, that people came up with new collaborations, did the projects they always wanted to do with their old friends. And that was one way for them to stay financially viable. Then we also saw that there was a lot of personal support for a lot of the small businesses, from family members, from spouses, a lot of the time from their parents who supported them financially, who looked after the kids, who helped out with the odd job. And I think a lot of them felt it would have been very difficult to run their businesses without these really very strong informal support networks. But what was also very important, especially emotional sort of support, was a lot of the media and the online support, that the designers are often running blogs or having apps or run websites, and they get feedback from their customers, and they get ideas and they get encouragement from that. And that played a huge role for them. But also that they got endorsements and awards that they could put on their website. And again, that helped them a lot to reach out directly to their customers and clients. And essentially, no fashion designer can do it on their own. They really need these big networks.
Great. Thank you very much. The next slide.
I think we're done.
Yes, so that's our presentations. There'll be a lot more detail coming out of in other ways of this project, but I want to use the rest of the time now to discuss some of the questions, and so please do keep your questions coming. And we've got a few here, so I'll do is I can read out the first. I can read out the question about the certification. So the question is, and I might pose this particularly to Debbie first, and then maybe Riz could follow. Can you please tell more about B Corp certification, and which are the other certifications that sustainable businesses are following?
Yeah, for sure. I'll certainly tell it from a Finisterre point of view. So, I mean, I've got to say, I think a B Corp certification is very different to the other certifications on the market in that it's not only looking at one aspect of your business. So something like a GOTS organic or blue sign, which will be looking at chemical, they're looking at very specific parts of your supply chain and extremely valid. However, B Corp is very much a holistic view of what kind of business you are. So you might be doing something very ethical in your supply chain, but treating your head office staff, terribly. So the whole point of B Corp really is this sort of 360 view of what does good business mean, and it's very progressive. It's very hard, quite rightly so. And it's about continual improvement across all aspects of running a business, from literally every. I'm sure Riz will add some colour to it as well. It's a very difficult process to become certified. So that's sort of one thing I would say. If you are interested to know more, one fantastic thing about B Corp, whilst it's very difficult to become certified, you can use the metrics. The certification process is open to anybody. So you can actually use that as your continual improvement for any business without actually going through the full certification process. Did you want me to come into the second part of the question in terms of other certifications that are worth looking at? Or do you want Riz to add first?
Yeah, well, I think you mentioned a couple there, didn't you? So are there any other particular ones you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's you've got to be specific to your business. So it's not like the guides where you want to just, collect badges for the sake of it. So it's very, early days of a business. You need to be making really strong relationships with your factories and with your mills and your suppliers. And then, then the certifications, you need to be sure of what you're getting. So you can't just say, I want recycled. You need, for us, we use a lot of recycled materials. So we require GRS certification. So it's very specific to us, and we require it. But what I would say is, first and foremost, ensure that you trust who you're working with, establish those relationships first, but always, you require those certifications. So I mentioned GOTS organic cotton, which we feel is the best from an organic point of view. Blue sign is fantastic from a chemical point of view. So it's very specific for your business. It's something you need to be savvy of, and you need to do your due diligence upon. But yeah, no substitute for fantastic relationships and trust.
Thank you. Riz, to add?
Yeah, I second everything that Debbie's just said. The B Corporation is fantastic in the sense that it's holistic, and yeah, it looks at every angle of your business. And I think these days you see a lot of companies sort of using sustainability as, sometimes rightly, they don't mean it, but it can be sort of used as a sort of a marketing thing, and they might do one thing, one area well, and it could be recycled fabrics or organic, but it doesn't look at the whole business. So the B Corporation is, yeah, it's a tough one to get, and you're reassessed every 3 years. One other thing I think was really strong about it is the you could say the community or the network or the movement, because it's a growing movement. You can learn and collaborate with other companies potentially. So I think that side of it's very strong. But it's good because you wouldn't normally look at every aspect of your business that way, and it also looks at stakeholders. So you could be a very good business, let's say, but you've got investment from a company who isn't as good or has a sort of a darker past. So there's sort of no stone is unturned with B Corp. So and I'm glad that it's getting traction, or it's getting even mentioned a little bit more. With regards to other accreditations, I mean, it's not something that we personally, I agree, you should look at your suppliers, of course, need to have strong accreditations, and you need to have trust for your suppliers, and it should come from that way down. But otherwise, I mean, we're 1% of the 1% for the Planet member as well, but that's not an accreditation, it's a certification. It just means that we promise to donate 1% of our profits to environmental causes. So I don't know. We've looked into maybe cradle to cradle is an accreditation, but again, like Debbie said, it's specific to your business. For us, we make 100% of everything's made from recycled products, and we aim to be a circular company. So something like that might be relevant to us, but it wouldn't be relevant to other people. So, but the worst, you don't want to collect, like Debbie said, collect accreditations like badges. It doesn't really work like that. And that's the great thing about BCorp. It's a toughie. So it's a wonderful, and you can use it. Yeah, you can use it as a guide as much as it is as an accreditation. So yeah.
Thank you. Any from Andrea, Sandy, or Claudia? Any additions to those things? I think. Great. The next question, Yife asks, I've been talking to a few emerging designers, and they told me the same thing about how they don't want to grow big and they want to expand organically to make an impact. But how could they become commercially viable and economically sustainable if they stay niche? So how have you, another question, maybe we could go back to Riz again, you could continue.
Yeah, I think I can, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, I can answer this from the perspective that we are a micro business. So my company, there's 2 of us. We started 11 years ago with 2 of us, and we are still 11 years later, 2 of us. So I think we're very unusual in the sense that we haven't grown as such, in the sense we haven't expanded through staff and things like that. So I think that if you want to grow, to stay niche, you have to have a good idea. There's no point being niche if it doesn't, your impact has to be through your creativity and through your idea has to be very, very good. Because otherwise there's kind of no point. It's just like it's just a personal project. So I think if you're going to stay niche, you go big through your creativity, through collaboration, through ideas, through doing something which has purpose and meaning. And then I think then you could probably warrant yourself of staying niche because there's a reason to be niche. Because your idea needs to be niche nearly by expanding, it might lose that the character or the soul of it. But I think also the person who's asked the question, it's a natural question to feel or to ask yourself at the beginning that I want to stay small because you haven't been on that journey yet. So you feel like by staying small, you can keep all your kind of creativity and you're not going to lose anything. But it might be that everyone's different and every business is different, and maybe along that journey that the growth is natural and their business needs to grow or should grow. And I think it depends on what you do as well. So I think it's a case by case.
Debbie, do you want to expand on that? And what are your sort of strategies for scaling up your impact in Finisterre?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think in hindsight, it's great to say that you've strategized everything and you've got to where you thought you were going to get to. But I think actually it's an awful lot more organic than that. So we're a lot bigger than we were when I joined the brand in 2008. But we are now 50 people that work at Finisterre. So that feels like a lot of responsibility to me. We didn't really plan to stay niche or to grow, if I'm completely honest with you. We just did what we did, and so I've got to be honest. I think it's easy to say that you plan, but I think if you enjoy doing what you're doing, and like-minded people come on board and the community grows, we certainly haven't said, oh, we've got too many customers now, let's close the doors. I think it's awful lot more organic. In terms of whether we did it based on profit or impact, I mean, we've absolutely impact. We've never been profit driven. And for us, I think scale gives us an opportunity to have a wider reach, which we find exciting. So, when we were talking smaller numbers in fabric terms, for example, we were asking for recycled materials in 2003, and it's now the norm. Those prices have come down because of the growing demand for these fabrics. So I'm not scared, and we're not scared of scale and growth within a sustainability space, because I think it can't all be bad. More people asking to drive that impact down on the environment requires collaboration across the industry. So, scale and growth can be good.
Yeah, I was
Sandy, yeah.
I was just going to also comment on with that question about the fact that a lot of this move to direct to consumer businesses as is one that has helped businesses to survive. Obviously, it's a very tricky balance, but at least it means that they don't have a sort of they don't have a third party that they're going to. So that's one way that these small niche businesses are able to at least survive initially.
There's another question from Claire, and it's particularly aimed for Riz, but I think it's relevant to for Debbie as well, and also maybe Sandy and others can talk about it more widely. Oh, I've lost it now. It's gone down the things. Yeah, what are the steps you're taking towards circularity?
That's a good question. It's the $1 million question with regards to, because there at the moment, I'll start with, there is no circle yet. And it's not just me, I think it's for a lot of companies, and any company that deals with synthetics there is no circle yet. So what we try and do is that we start the process with trying to make sure that everything is made from a recycled material to start with. So at least you're sourcing from something that's had a past life. And then the ideal situation is then you need to get those products back. So, because the fact is you can't rely on the fact that your customers are going to recycle them, because there isn't any commercial, there isn't sort of personal, you can't recycle your clothes, synthetic clothes, the public can't. So our steps are, try and make everything from recycled materials, ask our customers at the end of the product's life to send them back. And then originally we thought, hey, we can just recycle the garments, no worries. We can just recycle the fabrics or the components, but the technology isn't there yet. So that's the kind of the clangor in the circularity model at the moment. So what we've done is we have a resale model where we can resell the garments and give them another life until they're worn out. Our products, unlike sort of jersey or underwear or certain things, doesn't really wear out so much because it's pretty bulletproof product. So it's going to last 10 years at least anyway. And the thing is, what we're doing with the garments which potentially can't be worn is we're going to store them until the technology gets there. And that's the honest answer, that until the technology gets there, we'd rather keep hold of them. So at least they're like safe with us. Going forwards, we will actually look to find a new fabric again when the technology gets good enough that isn't as synthetic or it's not even biosynthetic. We'll try to look for something that can be regularly or more easily recycled. I mean, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation now, for example, is saying things like, maybe the best thing to do with recycled bottles isn't turn them into fabric, is actually turn them back into recycled bottles, because the recycling closed loop system within the bottle industry is stronger than it is within the clothing industry. So there isn't a full circle, but those are the where we're going to date. That's how we're trying to do it. Yeah.
Debbie, you want to add on to that? And
yeah,
Sandy wants to come in after.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd absolutely echo Riz's comments there. I think it's really interesting that sort of people have this assumption that closed loop is a reality. It's very much the unicorn of the fashion industry at the moment. But I would say for Finisterre, how we approach circularity is actually putting off closing that loop for as long as possible. So similarly to Riz there, in terms of, for us, it's all about durability. So the emotional durability of design. So you design something that isn't trend, you design something so it can be easily repaired, it can be easily upcycled. So it's, for us, that's paramount. It's all about durability and that life extension. So we've always offered a repair service at the brand, and that's something that we're really proud of and our customers really engage with. And actually our customers often request to have visible mending, so they'll have very large patches on our sort of most best-selling jackets, so that they can be sort of seen to be repair activists, I guess. And this year we're extending that to, we're launching our e-commerce platform. So you'll be able to trade in Finisterre and open those adventures up for more adventures beyond its first owner. So our focus is really there more than on the recycling. We are investing in fibre to fibre recycling, particularly in wool. So but it is in its infancy. It is a couple of years off in terms of real commercial fibre to fibre recycling, but important that we are, actively investing and interested in it. But yeah, that loop closure is a couple of years away.
Andrea, come in. Yeah.
Yes, this is all wonderful what Riz and Debbie have been describing. And in addition to that, what we found, what a lot of businesses also do, and what we would actually say steps towards circularity, is to engage with the customer and encourage sufficiency. So what are the garments you're going to buy, you invest in, how long would you want to keep them, to really sort of encourage a sort of a different mindset as opposed to the sort of throwaway culture, and to actually say you do want to value what you actually buy and use as long as possible. So this sort of active engagement with the consumers is also part of the circularity efforts.
Yeah, absolutely, because unless you reduce consumption, just giving people the idea that just circularity is everything, I think is questionable. It needs a full infrastructure to support it, and it won't work unless we also reduce the throughput of what we're making and producing and consuming.
There's a follow-on question from Mamta, who asks, what tools are your companies using for life cycle assessment? Riz, do you want to?
My simple answer is I don't know. My business partner, Ali, is looking at the life cycle assessment, and I don't know what he's using for it. So I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know the specific tools that we're using, but we are currently working on our life cycle assessment because we've never done one to date. So we are in the process of doing one. So I don't know. I can, if they ask me again in a month or two, maybe be able to help. Sorry, for now I can't help. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I can only just help because we've just done ours, so I'm in a slightly more fortunate position where we've just literally completed working with, and if you do need any help with this, I would highly recommend them, Green Element, who are another BCorp, who've really helped us. I was very, very daunted by this because we use something like 12 different fabric compositions, 24 different factories. I was like, wow, do I want to start this piece of work? I wish we'd started it a long time ago. So we've just done it, and it was incredibly illuminating. So we're looking at carbon, water, and across our full supply chain, across scopes 1 to 3 on carbon, and looking at full cradle-to-cradle life cycle assessment on our 3 top-selling products, which was an insulation jacket made of recycled polyester, a wool fully fashioned knitted jumper, and an organic cotton t-shirt. And the results were surprising, illuminating, and I sort of feel, yeah, I've learned a huge amount from the process. So it was a big undertaking. We've been working on it for well over a year, but well worth doing. But yeah, not to be taken lightly.
So we have another question that links to some of the stuff Claudia was saying around networks and sort of but also looking at the digital platforms. And the question is Instagram a valid platform to start an online business in this situation?
I think we have interviewed people who have started their business on Instagram and who is in particular selling to a younger audience through Instagram, and were quite happy with that. It probably is not the answer for all businesses, but might be the answer for some. Yes,
a lot are actually starting to engage in that. So Sabina is one who's been doing that for quite some time. So I wouldn't know how viable it is as the only route. I wouldn't have thought anybody's using it as the only source of income, but I stand to be corrected because we haven't done that particular research.
Right. There are a few questions around the business support, and I don't want to spend too much time on that because of the that's the focus of the session tomorrow. So we can definitely pass on the questions we've got on that. But I'll be interested maybe just to hear from Riz and Debbie their experiences of what support that they have found useful, and whether they had any sort of incubator sort of support at their beginnings, or what help they had at their early stage. Debbie, why don't you start?
No problem. Yeah, I mean, we're quite old school. So we actually started with Prince's Trust fund money, interestingly enough. And then we benefited a lot from EU funding, actually. So Cornwall is a very, it's one of the poorer counties in the UK. So we've actually benefited from a lot of European funding. A lot of it is about knowing what funding. Actually, I think Tom, who started the brand, if you ask what Tom did for the first 5 years, that's pretty much what he did. Was he had a filing cabinet of different funding applications. He became a genius at it. So a lot of the early days was really around that kind of space, and then more recently, I would say, really just other brands. And the pandemic has been a wonderfully sort of unifying moment. We're all in it together wherever you are. So actually just I'm on Zooms constantly to other people. If I've got a question to Patagonia, I'll just find somebody and ask them, and they usually respond in kind. So yeah, LinkedIn's been pretty amazing, and lots of webinars like this. So I think just asking questions, not being shy, and just making connections has been our biggest support network over the last 2 years, really, the industry.
Riz?
Yeah, we haven't done that much. When we very first started, I went to the local, I went to the Portobello business something or other, and I had a mentor, which was really helpful when literally things were written on a bit of paper, so we hadn't started. So it was quite nice to have a mentor at the very beginning, just to sort of hold your hand over the starting line, to taking it out of the bedroom, I think. So the idea out of the bedroom. So that was that. And we've had like another mentor along the way, but that was maybe just when we had a bit of a wobble halfway through. And again, you just needed someone to sit down and have a coffee with. But when we started wholesaling, because rather than just sort of going direct, we worked with the UKFT, who were quite good from a trade perspective. So they gave us some tips and help with how to sort of find agents and trade, you know, sort of the logistics of trading in through Europe and stuff. But I don't know, I suppose it's different for everybody. And I mean like Debbie says, yeah, I mean, a lot of the stuff we do through just sort of peers, I suppose, in the industry, and just asking people and asking for tips, help, feedback, things like that, really. Yeah.
Great. So we're coming to sort of up to our hour being on the call. So I want to sort of wrap things up now, but I don't know if Andrea, Sandy, or Claudia will have any final comments they want to make and reflections.
Well, I think it's obviously you have to juggle so many different things and try and be as holistic in your approach as Debbie and Riz have outlined. It's trying to cover so many things at once. Is there? Well, I can't really ask any more questions, so I'll just say I think it's been really interesting to hear it personally from two businesses that are very different in size, but still BCorp accredited.
Good. And Riz and Debbie, any final reflections?
I suppose the fact that we're all here together, and the fact that Debbie and I from similar companies at different sizes, and the honest thing about sustainability and all of this is it's a journey. You know, we're all learning, all of us, even through these conversations. And the fact is just sort of like learn from experience, really. But it's and I think collaboration is quite key. I often sort of think about collaboration. I think that's how we'll all help each other more. So yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Absolutely, collaboration is absolutely the key there, and also I think positivity. So I think we're it's quite easy to be very daunted by the sustainability. You know, it is daunting as consumers and for people who want to make a difference in the industry. But I think it's really important just to keep that optimism and that positivity. We do need to get on with it. There is an urgency, but I think if it sort of falls into cynicism or you know, sort of dejected, then you know it's no good to anybody. So keep positive, keep on with it. The industry is moving at a you know, rapid scale of innovation in this field. So so yeah, keep positive would be my final point.
Great. Well, that's a great point to finish on, and a really fascinating to hear from you, Riz and Debbie. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you to my colleagues, Andrea, Sandy, and Claudia. There's been a load of brilliant questions. I haven't done justice to them, so thank you very much for those. Some of those we might try and address tomorrow in our seminar. Then, so do join us again then, where we'll be looking more at business support. And I'd like to thank all the people who've asked questions as well for feeding it in. And so, sorry we can't all be together to actually enjoy this, but I feel that we've managed to get people from not only the UK but from around the world to kind of join in this debate. So I'm sure we'll look forward to continuing it with all of you. Yeah. So thank you very much indeed.
Can I just say that tomorrow we have Away to Mars, and Sabina will be joining us.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.